Sandra Corey from the Florentine, and tonight we're here with Simon Batten, also known as LMNL or LMNL, which is a bit of a tongue twister. So hi, Simon, thanks for joining us, and in conversation with the Florentine's music editor, Michelle Davis. So before we get started, a few practical things. This is the second edition of TF Together, our online daily moment to meet up and share interests online. And we're holding these events online every day at 5 p.m. until the end of lockdown. So you can find the entire program, which is updated every day on our website at theflr.net/TF Together. We're happy to be using GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar for these events, for whom we'd like to thank for their tech sponsorship in recognition of the community importance of this project. And of course, these events are, as always, free, though if you wish to make a contribution to ensure programming at this time, the Florentine accepts donations on the website at theflorentine.net/support. So that's it for me. I'm going to bow out. I'm going to hand it over to Michelle and Simon, and thank you for tuning in.
Thank you, Alexandra.
Thank you.
All right, here we are. So this kind of gives a nice twist to our quarantine evenings, doesn't it? So yeah, but I was just thinking it's a bit of a blast from the past because you were one of the first people I interviewed when I started working for the Florentine. What was it, like at least 4 years ago, if not more?
I think it was 4. I'm not great with years, but I think it was about 4 years ago. Yeah.
It was for your first record, right?
That was for that was for that previous incarnation of the group. Yeah, when there was we were just a 3-piece when it was Simon and the Strangers. Yeah.
Exactly.
A long time ago now. Yeah.
So maybe that's a nice spot, like a nice starting spot, like the change of name. When did you decide to kind of shed your skin and become LMNL and start this whole new project?
Was this could be quite a long story, but it basically came about sort of last Christmas. I'd already started collaborating with these guys in Pisa called Glowwall, which is sort of like a techno dance act, but quite minimalist. They do quite minimalist, quite dark stuff. And I'd started sort of doing stuff with them, and I'd written this track. I'd written this track about this relationship between Zelda Sayre and F. Scott Fitzgerald, and you know, like all dance tracks, and I was like, I'd sort of sent that off to them. They really liked it, and it became we did all right actually. Did quite a fair bit of success with it, and I suddenly realised, okay, I can write about sort of more complex stuff in this kind of format, you see what I mean? So it was like I could actually, you could write in that for that kind of music, but you could actually write about more interesting stuff and it would still do okay. It would still sort of, you know, get some success. And so sort of came out of that, I started demoing more stuff for them, and then it slowly grew into its own thing, sort of mainly sort of last summer really. So that was the sort of idea of it. I mean, it was also, you know, it was sort of like a period where I'd started like self-isolating like a year ahead of this. So
so you were ready, you had your tools and, you know, your techniques all honed out.
Yeah.
But you were also telling me that the result, like the album, is actually a whole concept piece on making something pop out of depression. So was this isolation like something that came out of this? Was it a need to kind of recover from something?
No, it was sort of as a result of it, really. And so it was sort of in a way of kind of sort of dealing with those sort of problems. It was actually sort of quite cathartic in a way of actually sort of using this as a mode of expression for it. And actually realizing I could sort of do it in pop was sort of good in a way because you always have like that kind of tension between the two forms. So you've got sort of quite sort of weighty lyrics, or at least sort of attempting to be, but also done in a kind of, at least, you know, trying to make things as simple as possible. And I think that's also actually trying to really sort of strip stuff down to its sort of simplest way, the simplest way of doing something. This is always something that's sort of intrigued me, but it was actually sort of forcing your hand. If you're going to do it in this way, you can't be too overblown. It's got to, you know, got to be simple and direct, and that sort of guides the whole process as well. Just like stripping out anything that's not of any use and being ruthless. Like, that's not doing anything. That can go. Does that need to be 2 bars long? Okay. And so it was actually, as a sort of guiding sort of process for it, I've gone too pretentious too early.
No, absolutely. But for me, it's really interesting because I know you as like more of a singer-songwriter, and now it seems like you're approaching new realms of sound. So I'm really curious to hear. And like we're going to be listening to I think a track from the new album, but it's not going to be like it's on the album because naturally with the guitar and everything, it's not the same as like with all the I guess you're using synthesizers or programming in loops and stuff like that.
Yeah, all of it really. And it was nice also being able to do a record that I sort of made the decision that I was going to do a record almost as just like a project just for me. And so that was sort of like what I was going to do over the summer. So in order to give myself that kind of project, I sort of needed something to get my teeth into. And so I thought, right, I'm going to do a record this time without any, I don't care if it's released or not. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to do it as good as I can. And then I'm just going to, you know, if anything happens with it, then fine. But I'm not going to have any kind of ideas about, you know, how am I going to play this live or anything like that. I'm just going to focus on the records. And so stripping all of that away of any other consideration seemed to help it a lot, because I was doing it without the idea of, oh, you know, who's going to, you know, how is this going to be received? How am I going to do it? You know, how am I going to do it live or anything like that? All went. And so the only focus was doing the actual record itself. And so,
and how did you proceed with that? Did you record at home? I mean, what was the whole process?
yeah, so we about sort of June, July. I was like, I was meant to go on holiday, and then I got sort of cancelled last minute as sort of one sort of friend dropped out. So instead of doing that, I just spent all the money on studio equipment, new stuff, new toys, basically. And just sort of, yeah, and that was also sort of like, it gave a little bit of a spark as well, because when you've got new stuff to play with, you know, new synthesizers and stuff, you get into it. Okay, right, I can use this for this. And so basically the whole album was recorded here. There are little bits and bobs, so I did like elsewhere. I'd been looking to involve my friend Nico for quite some time. Nico's half Italian, half English, so it seems to fit the kind of dual nature of the project. Incredibly good producer and multi-instrumentalist. And Nico got married to his wife Hannah in Bari this year. And so they stopped off at mine on the way back. So they were doing this little tour through Europe as their little honeymoon. And they stopped here on the way back. So I sent Nico some of these tracks and said, look, would you be interested in getting involved in this? And he was like, yeah, not only, do you want to release it on our label? And so that's suddenly, okay, right, we're going somewhere with this. It is, you know, it's got some sort of interest in it. And then I broadened it out a little bit more as well to have the singer Cecilia Cassini, so that we'd have another Italian voice on there as well, to sort of make it a bit more, to give that kind of, the kind of dual nationality side to it, like we all have here as expats, to sort of capture that sort of essence as well. And that was really good. That was really sort of positive. She came in and just did a vocal straight away. and so we got like another voice on there as well. And then Nico and Hannah started adding little bits to it once it was finished in Oxford, and produced it and mixed it over the space of about a month. So we spent a long time mixing this one as well. We put a lot of time, a lot of effort into it. But yeah, pretty happy with how it's come out at the end.
And so what about the title? Tell us a bit about it. Moonlight Cinema.
Moonlight Cinema. Okay, well that is actually, there is a cinema like called that in here in Florence. And
Cinema Fier di Luna.
yeah.
Yeah, okay. It's an open air cinema for whoever's never been there, but they open it during the summer and it's quite lovely.
Yeah, and it captures, I wanted to do something that was right for like like magic hour, where they said about the way that La La Land was all shot in that kind of magic hour in LA, that if you point the camera anywhere, they're going to get a nice sort of shot. I wanted to do something for that sort of time of day. It sounds really weird, but it was that that was the atmosphere I was trying to get. And there was just something about the name, if you just translated into English, there was something about the name that was just sort of quite nice. I don't know. It just sort of rang really. Sometimes it's as simple as that. You can hear, like, you just get an idea. Okay, right. I know. I've got the mood of the song, and so you can write it quite quickly. But yeah, that was basically it, really. It was sort of just sort of reflections on an evening after going there.
That's quite fascinating. So the title track is what you're going to be playing during this session, right?
It's the first, the EP is eponymous, but this one's going to be the first single off of it, yeah. But like all things, unfortunately, we've had to sort of we're not totally sure on the release date at the moment, because like everything at the moment, it's
well, so this is an extra treat. I mean, we're listening to this like super preview. Yeah, so I would listen to this track, and then maybe we could proceed with our conversation. But I'm just so curious. I want to see and I want to hear something from the new album, Moonlight Cinema, from Simon. Oh no, sorry, LMNL.
Yes.
The force of habit.
Branding. Under the moonlight cinema, seeing something I've seen before. Know how it ends. Know how it ends. Feels just like being 15 again. Have I learned nothing in between about how to begin? How to begin? Every single piece of me wants you, straining the synapses and sinews. Every single piece of me wants you. Now I'm closing all the doors and the windows, keep you out, shut you out, keep you out, shut you out. I'm on the ends of your fingertips, knowing when you want, you can tighten the grip. I'm holding on, I'm clinging on. I start saying things I'd never say. How long can you spend coming of age? It's been too long. It's been too long. Every single piece of me wants you. Straining the synapses and sinews. Every single piece of me wants you. Now I'm closing all the doors and the windows. Every single piece of me wants you. Now I'm twisting like a tail of misfortune. Every single piece of me wants you. Now I'm closing all the you out, shut you out, keep you out, shut you out.
I wish everyone could applaud, but so for
Feedback.
whoever is tuned in, for whoever who has tuned in just now, this was, oh damn, I should have written it like on the other, oh well.
Oh yeah.
Liminal, Moonlight Cinema. I didn't think about that.
No, but
But
reading it's fine. It comes out normal.
okay, yeah, just like your
Yeah.
the mind can do amazing things. So I have a cat as well, as you can see. So he enjoyed it as well. He came here to listen to your new tune from the new album. So I've always found really interesting that, like, even though you come from across the pond, you managed to come here in Florence and really carve a little niche for yourself musically. Like, you've always been going to concerts, meeting other musicians. But you've played also with my husband, and he found you through your website. So you've always been like, trying to find ways to find new musicians and contaminate yourself with the culture, the local culture. How is it that you've like evolved this way of this approach to music, and what would you like for the future?
Wow. I mean, there's absolutely no planning to it. I mean, it's just sort of, you just add bits on as you go through. I mean, it's sort of like, I don't know. Um, each sort of person you bring gives you another sort of perspective. I mean, it sort of helps if you're quite suggestible, I guess. You're never quite sure if you're doing the right thing or whether this could be better, or you hear somebody really good and I should be doing some more stuff like that. And eventually it all sort of, bits just sort of stick. And so, like working with those guys in Pisa, working with Alessandro and Fabio from Global, I mean, that was sort of like a really interesting process of seeing how they worked. And it was like, oh, okay, right. So I can do this and this and this. And it just opens up more possibilities of just sort of like, um, sort of having that kind of dance element in it, which was something I'd always wanted to do, but actually seeing them do it and listening to it back, and I was like, oh, okay, that's how you make a proper dance record. So it was like sort of learning from them really. And then when I came to do mine, I wasn't going to do the same thing, but I was going to take the element that I'd got, which was like having a massive bass drum. So and the importance of bass, yeah. And so it meant that also when we then go into the mixing process, I could actually go to Nico and say, right, this bit needs to explode, and yeah, we can have the bass drum up that high, because when you're speaking to people from other sort of genres, they'll be like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that or stuff like that. And it was being able to bring all those things into the process really. But yeah, I mean, there's never any kind of, it's always just trying to do the best thing you can, I guess. And then it's sort of, you learn from that and then you move on to the next one. I mean, this one's wrapped. I'm already thinking of like the new stuff.
Next album is going to be like a symphonic orchestra or something
Well,
like that.
yeah, well, we were thinking actually, we were honestly talking about doing another one almost straight after this, because it takes a year for them to get out anyway. This was, you know, this was recorded in September. It was, we always knew it was going to, you know, it's going to take a more or less 9 months to a year to actually get the thing out. So yeah, you just, as soon as you finish one, you just go straight into the next. I mean, there was a great documentary on the Stones not that long ago, and they're speaking to Charlie Watts about Mick, and he said Mick's never happy with anything. He said he won't be happy with this, and it's sort of, and I'm not either. It's always the next thing. The next thing's going to be the one, because there's always like bits you can do better.
So do you think you're going to be working on a quarantine album, or?
Yeah, well.
I mean,
that's just that's just recorded music anyway. It's just you
yeah.
don't see anyone
I mean,
for 7 days.
I'm curious because, you know, this is a hard time, but it's also a precious time, and especially if you are an artist or creative, to have like a bit of a cocoon moment. I mean, I'm sure that you're like working also on the side, but like to be at home and to have such limited space and like also limited stimuli to a certain extent, like you really have to delve into yourself sometimes, I would imagine.
Yeah, there is that. I mean, and also, I mean, the way you get in terms of picking up ideas and stuff for songs, and I mean, then they can sort of come from anywhere anyway. So it's sort of, yeah, I mean, you do have like the kind of limiting factor of the fact that you're not living as much. So you've got, perhaps you've got the focus in it, but you're not having that kind of, you're not going to have that moment where you suddenly get like a spark from somewhere. I mean, a lot of sometimes like simple melodies come from something like as simple as like mishearing other songs in a car park or something like that. And so you're not going to get those kind of stimuli. But yeah, it is. I think once I figured out how to do my normal day job from home, then I will actually have more time to do it. But at the moment, it's just trying to figure out how to do that because everything's taking that much longer.
Oh man, I understand. So I know we're asking for a lot, but maybe you would like to like dive back into your past stage name and, you know, play us another tune from the Simon Batten archives.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do one from the Simon and the Strangers EP, actually. I'm going to do one that was originally on piano, and it's called, oh, mine's come up. My cat's here as well now. Wait. Oh no, chasing a fly.
Okay.
We'll see if
You're
he
safe.
makes an appearance or not. Okay, I'm gonna do this one as a track called Ultramarine. Ultramarine, so deep the color, so mysterious the blue of the other. Something new to wear, something new to discover. There's a spark when these two worlds collide. Can't decide if it is dangerous or divine. There's a thread that's running through from Joni's side. Can't shake the feeling of looking on from outside. It's always ultramarine. Can't see to the bottom, from the hue of your eyes to the rank of your collar. Between the devil and the sea, only you know what you mean to me. There's a spark when these two worlds collide. Can't decide if it is dangerous or divine. There's a thread that's running through from Jonah's side. Can't shake the feeling of looking on from outside. Forever ultramarine, so deep the color, so mysterious the lure of the other. Something new to wear, something new to discover. It's ultramarine. Can't see to the bottom, from the hue of your eyes to the rank of your collar. Between the devil and the sea, only you know what you mean to me. It's different, which is different from wrong. It's different, which is different from wrong. This is 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 different. Ultramarine, you forever be. Ultramarine, you forever be. Ultramarine, you forever be. Ultramarine. Thank you.
Yay! So I was just thinking while I was listening to your song that like Moonlight Cinema, also Ultramarine, like you're always very fascinated by these dreamy settings or stories, because I remember you also telling me like the whole story behind the ultramarine color. Remember turquoise, how they used to like drag it from the Orients, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Well, Afghanistan actually, yeah, but yeah, I mean, it was that kind of yeah, of being again, that was sort of looking at the kind of outsider experience. Like a lot of people who are sort of expats, they feel like they don't belong sometimes in either country. So it was sort of like looking at that kind of experience as somebody as sort of like an outsider, but using that color as a way of telling it.
Do you still feel like an outsider now after all these years in Florence, or?
I guess a little
I
bit.
mean, things have changed. You've also become a respectable property owner. You have your own house in Florence, and I imagine you know the neighborhood quite well at this point. I mean, do you have, I don't know, the fornaio or the people downstairs that know your name and know you?
Exactly. Yeah, the old lady next door. Yeah. Yeah. You get a little bit of that, but yeah, but there's always like that little bit of you that's always going to be different. And so, you know, it's sort of I mean, that's what this kind of record is sort of like about as well. It's sort of learning to live with those differences. And, you know, there's certain bits of it we wanted to make actually almost like sonically to reflect that. So there's bits of like outlier which are meant to be uncomfortable to listen to. So you are meant to feel it at ease when you're listening to it. And so it's sort of reflecting all of those kind of sort of all those different aspects of you know how we feel about, you know, coming to terms with who we are. And yeah, it was like we tried to reflect that in the music as well. So
That is super
you know,
interesting.
yeah.
So it becomes a bit of like a sensory experience somehow.
Yeah, so Best Impression, which is going to be the other single, going to be the second sort of single off of it, is like brash and bold, but sort of trying to hide, you know, underlying insecurities. So it's sort of, it's coming out as sort of, but also like a declaration of like, this is my best attempt, you know. So there's all those, there was that kind of stuff. I try not to sort of over explain, you know, concepts and lyrics and stuff, because it's not my,
Right.
you know, I mean, it's not my job, you know, it's sort of, you know.
The music should speak on its own, right?
Yeah, also, I don't want to tell people what to think about it, you know. It's sort of not for me to tell them what the message is there or anything like that. It's like, that's it. If you get out of it what you get out of it, it's, you know, and that's not why I did it in the, you know, the first place. The reason I did it was to, you know, was to have something where it's like no pressure on it at all. I'm just going to do this for fun.
Then it turned into something that not only you believed in, but also Nico, because to be on a label and to have also, because you were telling me that it was produced also in like its top-notch studio. So
yeah,
I
I spent
mean,
money
from
on this
something
one.
that was
I mean, that was, yeah, and it was actually, yeah, because other records have sort of, when I've done them, it's sort of about, you know, I haven't had quite the money to actually put into it, and I was working a lot over last year and working an awful lot, and I was right, I'm actually gonna put some money into this, which also is nice when it's your baby, because then it gives you that kind of power to say, I think you might need to have another look at that. It's great for megalomaniacs, because you can then go, right, that bit's not right, that bit's not right, and you can push people a bit harder when you've paid them well. But yeah,
I mean, that must have been a cool experience.
for me, yeah, maybe not for them, but yeah, it went to, for the mastering, yeah, we wanted it to go off to people who knew what they were doing, like not knew what they were doing, but more, because everyone I worked with in that sense has been really good, but actually specialist kind of people for like that kind of almost like pop music. We wanted it to sound really good on the radio. And so it went off to Metropolis Studios. Felix Davis did the mastering, and he's done people like Lana Del Rey and lots of other, I mean, he's done lots of other people, but yeah. And he did a pretty top-notch job on it. And so we wanted it to sound like this is a record for the radio. We want you to be listening to this at sort of, you know, loud, like Best Impression, for example, was one of the reasons why we wanted to leave it until until late spring, is because you do need you need the sun when you're listening to it. So Best Impression, I was thinking, okay, right, I want people to be listening to this like on the way to the beach or something like that.
Nice. Yeah, that sounds great. But so what are the plans now? I mean, if someone amongst our online audience for now wanted to listen to the tracks or like get a whiff of what you're up to, is the album gonna be like incubated until summer, or are you gonna give us a bit of a sneak preview as well?
Well, we're playing it a little bit by ear, and so it's it originally was going to be like last week of April. It might well still be, but we're not totally sure. It was one of those things. I'm really hoping, but it's unfortunately one of those things that at the moment people aren't working in distributional PR, which is understandable because, you know, PR is networking and it's not the ideal time to be doing that. So we're hoping, but I mean, yeah, I think at some stage we're just going to go anyway.
Do you have a terrace at home? Do you have a terrace at home? Like, could you like do a terrace concert like the ones they're doing now? You could have a terrace launch.
I could, like the Beatles.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. That'd be great. Have you ever thought of like singing in Italian, or is that something that you're putting on the back burner?
I don't know. I've never been massively comfortable with the idea of it. I think it would be a little bit like trying too hard, I think, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's not to say that there's not songs in Italian I love, but then I just don't have the accents to do it justice, I don't think.
It'd be a bit like a spaghetti pop or something like that.
Yeah.
Maccheronico, as we say. So I'm just gonna send out a message to whoever is following us. If you have any questions for Simon, just let us know. Maybe in the meantime, you can play one last song. I don't know if you have anything ready. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
What are you serving up now?
I'm going back further into the catalogue, so I'm going to be concerned if people like them more as they go on, but because it means that I'm going backwards. It's a track off the first album, Unsettled Weather, called The Water, and I am going to have a sip of water because it's quite
perfect. So as I said, attendees, fabulous attendees, if you have any questions or you want any kind of information from Simon, I think at the end we're going to share maybe your website or at least your social channels. Just let us know, and in the meantime, water.
Okay. What a break down all that's in its path till it makes the ground flat. Somewhere else the earth builds again. Don't see much for our significance. I accept all this. Doesn't mean I like it. So how can God silence me more than this? When you leave me answerless, this from an emotionless cynic would have made himself feel sick. Hear himself say words like this. When the heart thoughts, sometimes it makes a mess. When the heart thoughts, sometimes it makes a mess. So how can your silence mean more than this? When you leave me answer this from an emotionless sinner who would have made himself feel sick, hear himself say words like this. When the heart thoughts sometimes it makes a mess. When the heart thoughts sometimes it makes
Yay! Okay, well, I think that our time is up, but in the meantime, I would like to thank Simon, LMNL. Thank you so much for your tunes, for your candid replies, and I think I really wish you the best of luck with this album, Moonlight Cinema Out, question mark. But we'll definitely keep you all posted on all the evolving situations. In the meantime, if you want to check out his music, you can find everything on lmnlmusic.com, so liminalmusic.com, and Instagram. The handle is at lmnl_music, and Facebook LMNL Sounds. So
Gotta
I
have a
think
run at LMNL.
liminal. Tongue twisted and happy. But if anyone has any questions, you can also contact Simon directly. I'm sure that he'd be more than happy to spend his quarantine days with some curious folks and music lovers. In the meantime, I would like to thank the Florentine for creating TF Together. This is just the first of many interesting webinars, meetings, events that are meant to bring our community closer and show you all the amazing things that this Free Press magazine has been doing for so many years. Thank you, Alexandra, for taking care of everything in remote and handling all the technical issues. Thank you, Helen, our editor-in-chief, for putting this all together. And thank you, the whole TF staff. Simon, if you have anything you would like to say?
Just thank you very much for having us on.